You're locked into Inception Radio Network, Superior, Wisconsin.
You're tuned in to NightVision Radio, exposing the truth one secret at a time. Prepare yourself as we explore the shadow worlds of suppressed history, secret knowledge, forbidden religion, and shine a light on the conspiracies that keep it all from us. Welcome to NightVision Radio. Good evening, everybody. That was a little Iron Maiden for you, Sign of the Cross. And if you know anything about the subject of tonight's show, then you might guess why I chose that particular song. We are going to be talking about the Great Cross of Hendaye, or Hendaye, as I guess the English pronunciation, which many people use. Either way you say it, it's a very fascinating subject. But we're also going to be talking about a new discovery. And I have two guests on tonight with me tonight. You might have... or you might recognize her from the movies because she is an actress, but she's so much more than that. I've come to know she's a writer, she's a researcher, and an on-the-ground investigator, and some of that has come to fruition very, very recently, and we're happy to have exclusive information on a discovery that she's made. And joining me is Lara Lamberti. Hi, Lara.
Hi, René. How are you?
From Berlin, I might say.
Yeah, I'm here.
So please accept our apologies for the ungodly hour for you, but we certainly appreciate you getting up for us this morning on your Friday morning and sharing your news with us. It's just fantastic.
It's fine. I have a lot of coffee, so it's working well.
A woman after my own heart. I'm sitting here with my coffee mug as well, as I always do. As everybody knows, I drink coffee all during the show. That's the way I keep my energy up, I guess. But anyhow, also joining us is author Cort Lindahl. And you guys know Cort. He's been on before. And even recently, you've seen him in the chat room. You guys, my chat room, as you know, Cort. And Cort is joining us tonight to sort of help us suss out the history of the Great Cross and some of the families connected to its construction. And also, both Lara and Cort are going to help us with some of the so-called apocalyptic symbolism on the Great Cross, and then also this new discovery by Lara of a twin cross not so very far away. So first off, I don't know if everyone listening knows about the Great Cross of Hendaye, but it's sort of been getting a lot of attention over the last few years, particularly because a lot of people felt that an alchemist named Fulcanelli, who had provided information about the Great Cross, was pointing to some sort of great apocalyptic event, something that would be approaching from the sky and destroy Earth, destroy the world, cause the end of the world or the end of time, as they say. I've also heard that this cross is connected to, or points to, and maybe Lara or Cort can help me out with this, a clock on a church in Cornwall, England, which has the inscription, "Watch and pray, time hastes away." And that is supposedly another indicator that time is disappearing, that time is ending. So this is what we're looking into today, the sort of decoding of the Great Cross. There's been some people that have done some, Widener and Vincent have done some great work in that area. We've heard from a fellow by the name of Nick Haywood, who purports to be from the Priory of Zion, who's given us information in the past on the cross. But Laura, let's start with you, if you don't mind, how did your interest in this particular location spring up, and how did you happen to find yourself in that village?
Well, I actually came from the Languedoc. I was traveling through the Languedoc, which is something I wanted to do for a long time, to see Rennes le Chateau and especially Montségur, because I have always been fascinated by all these subjects. And I happened to be in Marseille for personal reasons, for private family. And then I expressed the wish to go, and I had said to Cort that this might happen, and had offered him also to take some pictures for his latest book. And so I went. And so I went through the Languedoc, did my stuff, and then went until Hendaye, which I knew actually from 2012 and all the predictions for the end of the world. It necessarily popped up in 2012 because of Fulcanelli's prediction for the end of the world. And I wanted to see this cross. I'm a non-believer in the apocalypse, let's say apocalyptic predictions in this way. But I found it very interesting also because nobody has been able up to now to really decipher clearly, without any doubt, what this means. So being there, I really wanted to see it.
Well, yeah, I can imagine. And, I've heard people say, and I have not been to that site. Now, I'm going to be back in France, hopefully in September, but actually maybe sooner. I might be flying over to do an interview for television, a documentary series over there. And I'm hoping I get a chance to go. And if I do, I'm going to shoot down and see that site. But I've heard people say when they actually see it that it's not that large, that they're kind of expecting this gigantic, overpowering thing, and it's actually just maybe 3 or 4 feet high.
Yeah, I have to count this in meters.
Sure.
4
so it's like
feet.
1.5 meters or something, maybe.
The cross is higher. It's
I'd say it's about 10 feet to 12 feet.
Yeah,
really? Okay.
Yeah.
About 3 meters or 4 meters, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, maybe it was 3 or 4 meters that I heard instead of 3 or 4 feet.
Yeah.
But does it seem like a sort of ominous presence, or how did you feel? Did it evoke any kind of feeling when you were there?
Well, it's difficult to say because when you go there and you have already all this input, then of course it does. I mean, but what is strange is that it is kind of pasted to the church wall, which is not its original place, as I heard. And you can't actually really well see the backside of the cross. So it stands there. It has something like an impressive presence. It is something special. You see this and you feel this. But the location is a little, I mean, it's there, it's at this church wall. It was supposed to be on a cemetery. It was before, because usually the Basque cemeteries surround the churches. And St. Vincent, which is the church where this cross belongs to, is no longer like this. There was something built around, and so they placed the cross in a different place. And this is what you feel when you see it.
And in the symbols on it, there's some Mayan symbology and other symbology that seems to sort of all fit together in some strange way. But I understand that there's sort of 3 sections or something that all go together. I'm not sure about that. But were you able to glean anything from the symbols, or you'd probably read a lot about that already by the time you got there?
Well, it was interesting. I had, of course, read the book of Jay Widener, and I saw the video he made, the little movie he made about the alchemy question, and I also read Fulcanelli. So, of course, I was prepared concerning the interpretation. The symbolism, of course, you stand in front of this cross, and the first thing you wonder about is why this inscription on the cross, there's on the backside, there's this INRI inscription, and then there's this Ocrux Avi inscription on the front. And you wonder why the INRI inscription wouldn't be on the front. Also, Of course, the basement, the first thing you see is the sun, the so-called angry sun face. And the first thing, if you have ever seen the Inca depictions of the sun, it totally reminds you to this. I mean, you see it and you think it just can't be by chance. That is so similar. So these are the first impressions I had.
That's amazing. Thank you. And Cort, if you would please, when was this cross constructed and by whom? The first cross, the Great Cross of Hendaye, and then we'll get to Lara's discovery.
Right. Well, no one really knows for sure, but the clues are in the early 17th century. There's a sundial associated at St. Vincent's also that has the date of 1642 on it, and the sundial has a sun face on it as well. So I think the Widener and Bridges said around 1680. So it's obviously somewhere in that range, which is kind of prior to some of the later theories about people who may be associated with the cross in the 18th and 19th century as well. But my take on it was that the symbols on the cross were a metaphor for navigation. And this was after, of course, hearing Nicholas Haywood just briefly comment on your show a few years ago that you could take compass bearings from it. And this is something that I had already been working with, but the shapes of the buildings indicated these same directions. So the Cross of Hendaye is kind of unique that you have to kind of, from my view, solve what the symbols mean and apply them to the art of navigation, which in Mystery of the Cathedrals by Fulcanelli, there's also several references to pilgrims and pilots and the value of the pole star, which is valuable in navigating, and because you have to orient yourself to true north to figure out the other directions, even if you're using a compass or other stars or celestial bodies to do that. So it made perfect sense to me, but I had looked at it for a long time and didn't even think it had anything to do with navigation, because my mindset was, well, it has to be an octagon or a hexagon or a pentagram or some other geometric shape that suggests the directions with regard to true north. So it took me a while to come around to that, but then when I plotted the directions, I did find some amazing things, including it pointing very near to the new cross that Lara found.
Now that is really interesting. So, Lara, you were down there. Now, had you planned to go see the first cross already, or were you down there because you had gone down there to do some photographs for Cort's book? And it just
no. I went there to see the cross and to do the pictures of the cross.
I see. And then, how was it? Were you that you discovered, some information that led you to the second cross? I mean, how exactly did that work? Because I know oftentimes it's not easy to get information in these places.
Well, we were told before that except tourists, nobody would actually talk about the cross in Hendaye. Of course, not the second one, because we didn't even know it existed, and even not about the cross of Hendaye. And in fact, we were actually the only people to care about it on that Saturday, which was the Saturday of Pentecost. And the church was closed. Nobody was there. It was very cold. And we were running around trying to get someone to open the church for us, which we also achieved. And so while waiting for the priest, we entered a creperie and had something to eat. I had some coffee. And there were a few local people. And we started talking to these people. It has to be underlined absolutely that this is the Basque country, because this is very it's a very particular place. And we felt when we started talking to these people and it came to the cross that, when you feel that people have something in common that they wouldn't talk about, they were like very interested that we were interested, but they wouldn't say anything. And they were looking at each other. There was this woman and a guy sitting in the background, and also the guy who was serving at the tables. And then when they found out that we would talk about alchemy and all this, then they opened up a little more. And so we got more information from them. And at the end, the woman we were talking to, she said, as we talked also about the guy in the background actually said there are 3 crosses, and then he mentioned the one in Peru that has also been mentioned by Weidner. And then the woman said there's actually a second one here in the Basque Country, and it's not far away. And of course we said we want to see it, and she said I don't actually know where it is, but it's about at the parts of Saint-Jean-de-Luz, which is about 15 minutes from Hendaye. And so we went to that particular place. Of course, we didn't find it, and we had to drive around a little bit and ask people, and finally found it on the cemetery of the Church of Saint Martin in Sar, which is also called Sara in Basque, or in Spanish it would be Sara. And there it stood, right at the entrance of the cemetery, a cross that looks like the cross of Hendaye, but when you look closer to it, it doesn't have the same, it has the same structure, and the 4 A's are in the front. The cross is naked. There's nothing, no inscription, and the basement, there, the other 3 parts, there's nothing as well, and it looks as if it hadn't been finished.
And that was in a town called Sarah?
Yes, Sar in French, S-A-R-E.
Ah. Oh, that's interesting. There's a little village called Serre that's right out, near Rennes-le-Chateau, up sort of above Allet, I think, if I've got my directions right, but it's S-A-Y-R-E. Very, very interesting and very, very old site. I don't know if you've been up there.
Yes. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I was there.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking of San Salvaire. And then there is Serres Church, but that's spelled S-E-R-R-E-S.
Yes.
Another important location. Yeah, but San Salvaire, that's a different place, but it has some very interesting features that are very, very old and kind of undated. Kind of reminding me a bit of this cross that we don't exactly know when it was made. Now, Cort, you found that there were some families that were involved in this cross, or the building of this cross, that are connected with other families that have created, or the same families that have created structures sort of around the world that seem to point to each other in one way or another.
Right.
What can you tell us about the people that are connected with this location?
Well, they at least appreciate the cross, or some of their earlier family members may have been involved in arranging these 2 or placing them in the churchyard. As Lara said, they were probably originally in the graveyards right adjacent to the church, and you'll see the same thing in Sarah as well. And the Sarah is the Basque name for the town, even though in French it's spelled S-A-R-E. The Basque call it Sarah, or it's pronounced very similar, but that's interesting as well. Now, one would be led to believe in Hendaye, a nearby Chateau Abadia of Antoine Abadia, who is a famous geographer, cartographer, and naturalist. And that seems to fit a pattern of a lot of the people we'll see involved here. An astronomer, let's not forget that as well, because Chateau Abadia was built as an observatory. And this was amazing to me because I did not even know that. And as I began to develop, my theories about the axis mundi, part of that is that an ephemeris or star log would be collected to make this a valuable point, because then that would then allow you to compare that position to other places on the Earth where an ephemeris had also been collected. So this is the kind of knowledge that somebody who's familiar with astronomy or astrology may, gain some technical expertise and theorize that this could be done, and also assign pertinent directions for it in the shape of an octagon or a hexagon or some other geometric shape that would suggest a direction as such. So we see it was really interesting because I found this out about Hendaye and the Debati family, And then as I was really studying a whole separate realm of information in the Kirkwall Scroll in Scotland, and discovered, excuse me, James Bruce had traveled to Ethiopia and discovered original copies of the Book of Enoch and the Ethiopian Book of Kings, known as the Kebra Nagast, and brought them back. And he was also later involved in defining what's known as the Pistis Sophia from documents that he obtained in Alexandria. And this is all in the late 1700s or 18th century. So as I studied Antoine de Body, I saw that he, one of the descriptions I read that was he had James Bruce's book next to his bed. And I might add that James Bruce is a descendant of Robert the Bruce.
Robert the Bruce. I knew you were going to say that.
Right. And so that's what's really interesting about him finding these manuscripts in Ethiopia as well.
That is really interesting because of the Templar presence in Lalibela and all through there.
Right, or the theorized too, and that
the Ark of the Covenant was taken there.
Right, and also the form of Christianity they have there is a little similar to Greek Orthodox, which uses very similar symbols to the Templars as well. But then you have Antoine and his brother Arnaud traveling to Ethiopia in the footsteps of James Bruce. Mm. And even some of the books and academic writings of Antoine are about fixing your position on the earth and geodesy, defining the shape of the earth. And really, if you study him and the people he was associated with, here comes Alexander von Humboldt again, a person that I had associated with Thomas Jefferson, who also seems to be part of this group of people. And Antoine was associated with everybody at the Paris Observatory. His mentor was Arago.
Oh, wow.
The man you see his
on
name
the
on
plates.
The medallions on the Paris Meridian.
That's right.
Exactly. And also, this links us back to some of the mysteries of Rennes-le-Château via the Piraeus there. Some people theorize that in Piraeus, near the coast down there in southern France, that is may be associated with Rennes-le-Château. But what's interesting about that is the involvement of the Cassini family, who are the directors of the Paris Observatory for the father and son as well. And the son was actually born there in the Paris Observatory.
But this whole thing, if I could just pop in real quick.
Sure.
This whole thing with the observatory connection, it sort of lends itself a little bit to this idea of watching something coming from the sky, but it also lends itself to this idea of navigation that you're talking about.
Correct. In the Cassinis, we know the Cassini space probe
Sure.
is named for that family. And what's really interesting about the Paris Observatory is that, of course, the Paris meridian runs directly north-south from that point and through that point. But the linear mall or array of the observatory points a little bit to the southwest and does not point straight north and south. And if you draw an arc on the globe the direction that the Paris Observatory points, it leads directly to Montserrat, Spain.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, wow.
Yes, which is one of the, of course, fabled locations of the, quote, Holy Grail.
That's right.
So these men, they're either playing a big game with us or they know something. They might just be creating a path of initiation for us that Lara went through. And thank you, Lara, by the way. I put out a call on Facebook if anybody was traveling to these places to please take some pictures for me, and she was kind enough to share her pictures with me, so thank you.
Oh, that was a pleasure.
Now, you two have been working together a little bit, but you've never spoken, actually. Is that correct?
No. We just messaged back and forth on Facebook.
Oh.
She's read some of the things that I've written and things like that, and thought it made sense, I hope.
Of course, yeah, I saw the videos he always published, and I really liked his work, and I find it very interesting. And so I followed him, and then I followed the call for the pictures.
Yeah, and then I discovered when Cort was telling me about you, Lara, that we were already Facebook friends. So I guess we must have a lot of common friends and common interest. And I think that's how this whole thing works really well. And I think that's the way. I don't think it's going to be some big treasure hunter that goes out there and finds all the answers. I think it's going to be a lot of us around the world sort of teaming up where we need to, as you and Cort did. You know, Cort couldn't get there, but you were there on the ground and you were able to give him a little piece of the puzzle. And then in doing so, you ended up making a big discovery, which we're going to get into a little bit more of right after the break. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to hear more from Lara Lamberti and Cort Lindahl about the Great Cross at Hendaye, or Hendaye, however you prefer, and its twin in nearby Sarah. So please stay with us, and we'll be right back.
Listening to IRN, the Inception Radio Network, Chicago, Illinois.
Hello, Inception Radio Network listeners. This is Amanda. Remember, you can take your Inception Radio shows on the go. Just download the Inception Radio Network app for your iPhone, iPad, or Android smartphones and access live shows, past shows, guest lineups, and much more. Just visit the iTunes Store or the Google Play Marketplace and download it today for free.
Are you a fan of Inception Radio Network? Do you reckon it's the best alternative talk radio station on the planet? Well, if you do, head to facebook.com/Inception Radio Network and like the page. Tell your friends, spread the word, and keep listening to the best.
Hello, IRN listeners. This is MJ saying hello and sharing an awesome secret I discovered. It's called DreamNuage.com. Fresh, raw, organic ingredients are used to create all their products. They are made in very small batches to ensure quality and freshness. Handmade in the USA, each product is created with care and with the finest organic ingredients. There are no preservatives, dyes, or chemicals in any product. Stop by Dream Nuage and relax. That's DreamNuage.com. Simple, raw, organic.
You didn't forget what's coming up tonight, did you? Hi, Inception Radio Network listeners. This is Amanda. Never miss that interview you were looking forward to or the show on your favorite topic. Follow IRN on Twitter, I_R_N, and get reminders about the evening's live shows as well as fun and important updates throughout the week. That's I_R_N, and never miss a great show again. Hello, Inception Radio Network. Would you like your favorite show to be played again live on air? Well, now the choice is in your hands with IRN's live request portal, an easy way to request your favorite show with a simple click. IRN's live request portal now gives you exclusive access to all the shows. How easy is it? Simply type a show name or a guest name, click request, even write a dedication message, and that's it. Try it now. Simply visit InceptionRadioNetwork.com, click on the Live Request tab under the show menu. Now playing your favorite show is just a mouse click away.
Don't have a computer? Is your internet connection down? Don't worry. Use your trusty cell phone or landline and call into our listen line at 401-283-6700 to listen to the Inception Radio Network 24/7. Again, that call-in number is 401-283-6700. For the Inception Radio Network, I am MJ.
welcome back to Night Vision Radio. If you're just joining us, we are talking with author-researcher Lara Lamberti and author-researcher Cort Lindahl. And we've been speaking about the Great Cross in Hendaye, France, and a twin cross that Laura has discovered just recently, just weeks ago, in nearby Sarre, France, which is very interesting. The name Sarre kind of conjures up a lot of things, but also, Laura, during the break, you were talking about the name of Hendaye or Hendaye and what it means and the different pronunciations and spellings of the word. Can you share a little bit of that with the listeners?
Yeah, of course, yes. Hendaye is written also Andaya, and the Basques, I think, and more than everything, the Spanish people write it like this, and they pronounce it like this, Hendaye, and it does recall the Ands. Hendaye, Ands, it's kind of similar.
Mm. Yes, and then now, is this on, you mentioned Pilgrim's Path, Cort, earlier. Is this on the path to Santiago de Compostela or some other pilgrim's path?
Yes. Excuse me again. Mm-hmm. Yes, it is on one of the branch routes that go there. And if in Falconelli he speaks about, especially in the chapter of the Palace of Jacques Coeur, how any adept must become familiar with all of the secrets of the Camino, or the Way of St. James pilgrimage route.
Yes.
So there's a lot of lore concerning that's involved with that. And what was terribly interesting, given all of that, if you examine the involvement of the concept of Santiago and all of the lore and mythology that's associated with that the St. Martin's there right next to the new cross that Lara found is oriented to point an arc on the globe directly to the Cathedral of Santiago de Compostela.
Interesting.
So quite a coincidence there. And that's interesting. And also you were speaking of the inscription on the church with the clock in England that Nicholas had spoken of. There is a similar inscription that I can't remember word for word on the St. Martin's there in Sarre as well. So it's kind of, we need to get Nicholas in here at some point as well and pick his brain about that one some more. But,
yeah.
Right, but that's really one of the only directional things I found there that may apply, because it's so close to the other cross that on a large scale, really the places that it would point would be so little different than the original one that I figured there has to be a different purpose for this one. And really it's located near La Rune, one of the sacred mountains of the Basque, and it's very close to the border with Spain. And there's just lots of interesting things you can read about Sarre, with all kinds of famous politicians and personalities over the centuries visiting there.
True.
So there may be something more to it. We don't know, but it could be family-oriented, like with this group of people we were talking about before. So there's still a lot up in the air, but we're making some headway here.
Yeah.
It was also interesting as that the Basque people interpret the way they interpret the way the second cross is situated because of the front part of the cross. They say that actually the original front part of the cross of Hendaye was probably transported in its three parts. I don't know how they did it, but they say that the parts don't fit together anymore like they did once, and they interpret the way the Sarre cross is placed as the actual way the Hendaye cross was combined also, which would mean that the A face, this part where the 4 A's are, which is now looking to the side, actually was the front and had above the INRI inscription. And today, it's what is the front part would be the sun face, and it has the Ocrux Ave inscription above it. So it would have been turned, and seeing the seraph, the Sarah cross, you have the only face, the only part of the base which has carvings in it is the 4 A's. But they say this would have been
A's are different. Are they carved in the same way, those 4 A's, that they are on the original cross? Because aren't they unusual looking? Don't the crossbars of the A's are at a diagonal rather than straight across? Is that? I've just read the description. So
no. The A's on the original cross are kind of in a traditional Basque font that resembles the Auspice of Maria symbol.
Oh.
Which has the A and M, but on the new cross that Lara found, they're just a regular A with a straight crossbar. But what's one of the things that was interesting in the pictures that Lara took was this oval shape. And you know, a lot of the people who analyze the cross say this represents the world, and then it's divided into 4 segments. Instead of being a circle, which is a common, you know, alchemical symbol for Terra that has that cross in it that resembles a Greek cross with each side being even, this one's oval instead. And really that could be another connection back to our geographers who spent a lot of time, especially the Cassinis, doing astronomical experiments to prove the actual shape of the Earth. And we know that the actual shape of the Earth is a little more egg-shaped, just not that you could tell visually. I think it's 6 miles over each pole longer than around the equator. And that may be what they're representing there, that they know this as well already. So it's pointing to an advanced degree of geodesy, navigation, astronomy, and astrology as early as the 17th century. And we know really it goes way farther back than that, but if it's associated with the Cassinis and this group of people like Alexander von Humboldt, Arago, and the Debatis, then this could be what they're showing us, or what they interpreted from seeing this as well. They might have saw this and said, "Oh, look, this person knew that built these."
Yeah, you know, I was thinking about it today, and I was on the phone with Gloria Amendola, and we were just talking about this subject and others, as we often do, just get off on a big gab fest about and I was telling her, I was saying, I try to now look at things differently than I used to. It's like, I try not to look at the obvious answer, and sometimes I try to look at the opposite answer. It's like a lot of things have been, it's sort of this idea of sort of dualism and mirrors and, you know, things in reverse and reflections of things. It seems to permeate this whole mystery. And so there's also been a lot of sort of deception by whatever powers that be, you know, for their own purposes and gain. So I try to look at the opposite side of the coin. And when I hear people talking about the cross at Hendaye being an apocalyptic message about a forthcoming, you know, disaster that's going to hit us from the sky and wipe out the earth and all time, I try to think, now, if that's not the right message, is there someone that would want us to have that message? And it's really the opposite. And could the opposite be something like we are advancing as human beings so that at some point there is going to be a huge apocalypse, which basically is a Greek word which means revelation. And that in that all these systems, you know, are going to be shaken and destroyed. Some of them may be government, some of them may be, you know, church structure, you know, different things like that. So that maybe a disaster to whoever is sending this message might not be a disaster for the rest of the world population. And I agree with Lara that I don't think it has really to do with, we're going to all die. Obviously, it didn't mean we were going to die in 2012 because we didn't. So, I mean, do either one of you have any thoughts about that? I mean, these are just, opinions, that I was just discussing today about this idea.
Right.
That sometimes you look at the opposite message. Have you found that at all to be worthy of any thought?
Well, on one hand, I agree with you that there could be an opposite message, and that I've always thought that there are many people who are interested in selling us this apocalypse thing as something that is threatening us, and therefore we have to behave in this or that way. We have been manipulated always. This is also something interesting that is mentioned in the book, The Gods of Eden, of what's his name?
Is it Eric von Daniken?
No. That is The Gods of Eden.
I'm going to tell you right now. Gods of Eden.
We have the internet.
William Bramley. William Bramley. I had to make my
William
brain
Bramley
too early
before I could even look it up.
I should have known this immediately. It's just it must be the time.
Oh, so, absolutely.
And he is of the opinion. This is a book. I don't know if you read it, but it's something that talks about the influence of secret societies and their origins. They would have an ancient aliens or Anunnaki influence a long time ago. But the interesting aspect, you don't have to believe in the Anunnaki story, which is many people do, other people don't. But what is very interesting is his interpretation of why we are always told that there will be an apocalypse, and he thinks that it's just to manipulate us and make us go in one way or the other, and that this has been done forever.
I think, a lot of, through the centuries, a lot of the systems, whether it be governments or religions or whatever, have sort of had a ruling by fear thing. If they can get you scared of either, being attacked by the enemy country, or by, being attacked by the aliens, or by going to hell, then, they've kind of got you. If they say, oh, in order to save yourself, we can help you, you can do this. I think that is sort of a manipulation, like you said. A way to manipulate people is to keep them in fear. And that's sort of been our history, unfortunately. So it's like, it's always good, I think, to look at the other side of the coin and say, okay, what's the opposite message here, just in case, I might be missing something.
Right. It's a good way to even hide things and hide concepts. And through time, there's always been very intelligent people that can arrange things that would dumbfound the rest of us. If you look through history, that's there. And we also, if you read The Mystery of the Cathedrals, you have to also remember that this is Falconelli's interpretation. He doesn't know any more than we do who left this there. And so he may not be 100% right himself, even though he's adept of an organization that values this kind of thing. So,
and do we even know who Falconelli really was? I mean,
no.
He was an alchemist,
no, we don't
but
know.
That was not his real name, I don't believe, was it, Lara?
No, he could even be more people, not just one person, but maybe he came out of some lodge or some brotherhood or whatever. He could have had his own agenda in this.
Sure.
Of course.
But it could be another piece of propaganda,
Yeah, and this could be our group of intellectuals that I was referring to, possibly.
Sure.
But what I find interesting is that when I went to Rennes-le-Château on the same trip, and I went to the church where the church in Rennes-le-Château, there was a cross in the garden, and it also has the inscription O Crux Ave, which I found interesting because actually O Crux, the original Cort, maybe you know better than me, but this O Crux Ave is something that is used, but it's not actually O Crux Ave. It's Ave Crux, something like that. The words are actually not in the same sequence, if I remember well.
On the Hendaye cross, yeah, they're slightly different.
Now,
but they both refer to O Way of the Cross, which could mean that you may have to follow or something too.
Oh, right.
If you take an alternate interpretation of it, follow the cross.
Yes. Oh my goodness. And these crosses.
It's actually Ave Crux Space Unica is the actual sentence. So this O Crux Ave is something particular.
Right. It's suggestive, exactly, of something else.
And I find this interesting when René, when you said revelation and apocalypse means revelation, because I tried to find any connection between the mystery of Hendaye and the rest of my trip through the Languedoc, which has such a big story. And when I found this inscription, I wondered what actually might Saunier have found in Rennes-le-Château. That was it really something that was in any way to be connected to the Holy Grail, or did he find some information that maybe, for example, the Cathars were right? What is it that this revelation might be? And so we have a connection from Rennes-le-Château to Hendaye through this inscription, and we have the story of Rennes-le-Château where something is found that nobody knows what it was, but it was important. And then we have the Cathars and all the story, the Templars and all the story in the Languedoc, which both ended up with the people of these particular groups being grilled alive. And so I wonder, what was it that is so important that was
that must be kept secret.
That must be kept secret, exactly.
Yes.
Right. And that's just like reminiscent of even the secrets of the Templars, of whatever they found on the Temple Mount and things of that nature. So.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Lara, when you were talking about that cross outside the Church of Mary Magdalene at Rennes-le-Château, I know exactly what you're talking about. And that is right in the middle of what Henry Lincoln calls the invisible church.
Exactly.
There's a double, there's the church, and then there's the invisible church, which is where that cross sits, which I find is interesting too, because it's another opposite, another mirror, another duality. Mm-hmm. So what is it all trying to tell us?
Right. It's the revelation theme's always there, and even I found one ancestor of the Abadis there in Hendaye, Jacob Abadi, in the 17th century, and this is maybe right around the time when St. Vincent's and the date on the sundial there were put there. But he wrote an entire book. He was a Huguenot, a Protestant. He was not a staunch Catholic like Antoine Abadi was, but he wrote an entire book about revelations. And I was amazed just in the small parts of it that it was in French, and the translator jumbled it up really good, but some of it I was able to read, and he even refers to Basilica San Vital, which is another millennial monument that I've identified that is an octagon, and it has a mosaic of Christ Pantocrator holding the seven seals. So there's some interesting connections there with the Revelations theme.
Oh,
interesting.
Wow.
So that's it. Maybe not necessarily to frighten people, but in fact he was kind of trying to change all that as the Protestant he was. But he was an interesting fellow. And then later you see other branches of the Abadi family becoming the governor of French Arcadia, the governor of Louisiana, being the vizier or financier of Basque nobility, and even to the Jacobites. the exiled kings of England and Scotland who lived at Saint-Germain-en-Laye near Paris, and this was the body Saint-Germain branch of the family.
Oh, interesting. Also, this is interesting also because if I'm not wrong, the Jacobites are those who gave the French Freemasons their particular way of being, which is different from all the others.
Yes.
Right. It was an exchange of information somewhat, and that could be also connected way back to the cutting of the elm, where the Frankish faction and the English faction kind of went their separate ways while they were still very similar. And then you had the kings going over, Henry II and such, establishing England in their mold. And that does lead to the Jacobites eventually. So that's an interesting connection to other monuments like here in the United States that I've identified that follow the same tradition. So it all leads back to France in a big way, and we know that even Scotland is heavily connected with France. A lot of people neglect to note that, but they were more allied with France for much of their history than England or any of the British Isles, and that's noteworthy in what we're talking about. And even
There was
the name James
Celtic
of their
presence.
kings. Yeah, the name James of their kings comes from Santiago. The fifth Earl of Stuart, James Stuart, was named after Santiago, and then even James Douglas and the other King James as well. So, and just really quick, one really amazing thing I found was that William Sinclair, the creator of Rosslyn Chapel, was a Knight of Santiago, and the octagon at Santiago de Compostela points directly to Rosslyn Chapel.
Oh, wow.
So there's connections, and it's interesting in light of what Falconelli and Mystery of the Cathedrals is telling you about Santiago de Compostela. And
Well, I
coupled
tell
with
you-
your guest last week, Tim Wallace-Murphy,
Yeah.
the things he told us about the paths of initiation and such, it's just interesting to see that people were valuing that in a similar way.
Yeah, now I'm wondering, just a little selfish curiosity here, how close is this location that we're talking about, these two locations of Hendaye and Serra, to Mount Randa in Spain? That's just the mountain that sits above Palma.
I don't know.
I've
Do you
never
know?
looked into that. I've searched for Mount Randa when you told me about that, but
Yeah.
I didn't know where it was. And my association that I found was the Great Cross of Hendaye points to Ronda,
Right.
Ronda.
I know, which is odd, isn't it? Because I've
Right.
been looking at Randa. The reason I was pointing to Randa was because of that monastery there called Our Lady of the Cure. And, again, you can hear any and everything, but I was told by Nick Haywood that every initiate must pass through there,
All right.
that particular monastery. And one notable thing about it that I think is really, really interesting is that there's a perpetually blooming rose bush there. Where
That's interesting.
Oh,
The
yeah,
road.
I heard of that.
yes, and the people claim that they, visit this rose bush and experience spontaneous cures.
All right. That's interesting, too, because the azimuth I worked from Hendaye that led to Ronda led to another very similar cross. It didn't have any of the inscriptions or anything, but it was originally in front of the sisters of the Mercedarios or Our Lady of Mercy, I think is the literal translation, in Ronda. And then it was moved to Palacio de Salvatierra. And there's really imagery all right there at the Palacio that is very similar to the Great Cross of Hendaye. There's a placard there with the same circle segmented with alchemical symbols in it, and of an inscription that includes the auspice of Maria, shaped letter A.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that will take a 2-hour show to go into great detail about that, but there's also Palacio Moctezuma. And this is what led me to start looking at the sun face on the Great Cross. And granted, the sun face is fairly common in regions Normans used it in their stonework and stuff, but the exact form of the one on there does resemble the Aztec sunstone, in my opinion, closely.
Oh, wow. You know, we're going to have to take another break in just a moment, but Cort, I know that you've released your new book, right?
Yes, Sacred Towers of the Axis Mundi.
Yeah, I wanted to let people know how they could get it. And so how do people find it? They go to Amazon? Where do they go?
Yes, you can word search that, or it's available at createspace.com, and there's a link on my blog, survivalcell.blogspot.com, that'll take you right to the book sales.
Right.
And there's a sample of it right on the blog, at survivalcell.blogspot.com.
Lara shared some of her writing with me this week, which I found really interesting. We might get a little bit into that, if you don't mind, Lara, when we come back. Maybe those red-haired giants. That was really quite interesting.
Oh, well.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, we are going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in just a couple minutes after these messages. So please stay with us.
Listening to IRN, the Inception Radio Network, Chicago, Illinois.
Do you have a smartphone? If so, Inception Radio Network is the best app for you. Available on iTunes, Android, Samsung, and most other app stores. Just search Inception Radio Network. With the app, you can listen live, check out podcasts of recent and past shows, view our videos, see what shows are coming up, who the guests are, and, via the chat room, send live questions to those guests. You know it makes sense. Check your app store now. Inception Radio Network. I'll see you there.
Hi, can you hear my voice? Imagine how many other people can hear it too. If you have advertising needs, then look no further. The Inception Radio Network currently has openings for on-air advertisements and radio show sponsorships. Given any thought to your target demographic? Inception has you covered there too. Advertising on a network gives you multiple opportunities to advertise on a wide variety of radio show broadcasts, and we have one to fit every advertising need. You know, in recent years, internet radio has exhibited a phenomenal listener growth. An Arbitron Edison survey shows that online radio boosts at least 33 million unique visitors each week and 54 million each month. And that number amazingly continues to grow. And these listeners are a part of many businesses' core demographics. And surveys have shown that internet radio listeners are far more likely than regular radio listeners to spend money on a whole range of activities. You know, internet listeners vote, they dine out and eat fast food, and they grab a cup of coffee. And here's the interesting one. They buy items online at a much higher rate than all other market segments combined. Internet radio also enables businesses to connect with consumers during work hours, where increasingly more lifestyle decisions are being made. Advertise with the best. The Inception Radio Network offers competitive advertising rates to fit just about anyone's advertising budget. Stop by today at www.inceptionradionetwork.com or call us toll-free at 1-888-919-2355. Get the word out. Get results with the Inception Radio Network.
Hi, Inception Radio Network listeners. This is Amanda. Just a reminder that Inception Radio Network is on Twitter. Follow us at I_R_N and keep up to date about who's on tonight, what interviews they'll be doing, who's guest spotting, what topics they'll be covering. Tweet to us, tweet about us, retweet topics to your friends, and most importantly, never miss a great show again. That's I_R_N.
Don't have a computer? Is your internet connection down? Don't worry. Use your trusty cell phone or landline and call into our listen line at 401-283-6700 to listen to the Inception Radio Network 24/7. Again, that call-in number is 401-283-6700. For the Inception Radio Network, I am MJ.
Are you looking for a cure for boredom? Never worry. IRN's new interactive website introduces a number of ways to pass time while you listen to your favorite show. Choose anything from the IRN chat lounge, the game lounge, video lounge, or the mood lounge. These fun, exciting features let you chat in real time with fellow listeners, view live skywatches, play daily posted online games, or pick a show based on topic. The choices are endless. Use your time wisely, keeping it all on IRN.
Listeners, this is MJ saying hello and sharing an awesome secret I discovered. It's called dreamnuage.com. Fresh, raw, organic ingredients are used to create all their products. They are made in very small batches to ensure quality and freshness. Handmade in the USA, each product is created with care and with the finest organic ingredients. There are no preservatives, dyes, or chemicals in any product. Stop by Dream Nuage and relax. That's DREAMNUAGE.com. Simple, raw, organic.
Thank you for hanging in there with us. If you're just joining us, though, we're talking with Lara Lamberti and Cort Lindahl about their research and Lara's recent discovery in the south of France. We're talking about the Great Cross of Hendaye and a twin cross that Lara has recently discovered in the nearby town of Serra, which is kind of an interesting name and brings up all kinds of associations for me. But anyhow, I want to get into some of Laura's other writing, but also, Laura, you mentioned something during the break about the Basque and the Basque people. You wanted to make a point about this region and about these people. And they are very unusual because their sort of origins are pretty much shrouded in mystery.
Yeah, the origins are not clear of the Basques, and the language is absolutely unique. It's not connected to anything in the world. And also they have an abnormal amount of Rh negative blood type. They are genetically related to the cells, which is very interesting. And then what I find very, very interesting also is that there are similarities with the Incas. They have, for example, like the Incas, they had a sun and a moon cult. Their religion was, first of all, we have to say that the Basques, which is, they call themselves Euskadi, which is their language. They don't define themselves by territory, but just by language, which means who speaks Euskadi, who speaks the Basque language, is a Basque. And this is very different from many other people. And their religions were passed on orally. There's no written religion of the Basques, but their cults were similar to the sun and moon cult of the Incas. And the church had a hard time with them because it took them a long time to Christianize these people. And their cross, they had a particular sign, which is the swastika in reality. And they said it symbolizes the perpetual movement. And they have very particular crosses up to the current day. When you go on a Basque cemetery, you see these crosses, which are very, very special, very sometimes similar to the Celtic symbols also, like the Celtic tree or the Celtic knot. So they are very special also culturally. They're unique. And I find it very interesting that they are connected. They're tied really close to the Celts.
Now, are you aware of any connection to a Druid connection?
I don't know. I don't know if it was Druid. However, we have to remember that the whole area coming down from Cornwall, going down the whole west coast of France through the, there's the Normandy, and then you have the La Bretagne, and you go down until Spain in Galicia, where you still have Celtic symbols and Celtic traditions.
Correct.
When you go to Galicia, you have a lot.
There's a lot of markers in the environ of Rennes-le-Château, a lot of Celtic or Celtic markers, menhirs, dolmens, and things like that.
Right, and around Sarah, that is famous for that. For the megalithic, the dolmens, and there's some very famous caves there too. That one even includes a huge carving of a bear that are from the I believe the Iron Age. So that's a very interesting correlation too.
Yes.
I mean, this is a fascinating area. For some reason, as Tim Willis-Murphy last week on this show was pointing out, this has been a place where people have come over centuries and over millennia. People have come to this place, the Druids, the Sufis, the Templars, all kinds of different philosophies, obviously the Cathars and, other so-called Christian heretics. But they came to this area and they lived together in peace and they had no problem. There was something about this place that is such a draw. I don't know if it has something to do with the Pilgrim's Path to Compostela. I don't know if it has something to do with the telluric energy of the area or with the water in the area, which seems to have some unusual properties. But it does seem to be a very, very special place. And like you said, Cort, things always seem to point back to France.
Yes.
Do you find that too, Lara?
Yes, it is also because Hendaye is actually in Aquitania, and it's also a very mysterious region, exactly like the Languedoc, with lots of historical events and mysteries, and France has something. Yeah, it's true.
Mm.
And the Scottish could tell.
Yeah.
they love the French. Even, James Douglas, a lot of the more famous Scottish names you read about were all educated there. Sir Francis Bacon was educated there. Thomas Jefferson spent a great deal of time. Benjamin Franklin. Yeah. John Adams. There's two of our earliest presidents right there.
Yeah, yeah. Lots of writers and artists and, as you said, leading political figures. They all seem to have gone and spent their time in France, and they all seem to have had some kind of occult connection. And by occult, I mean, hidden connections with different groups and people there that are known in part of, to be a part of this mystery. So it is really, really interesting, how it comes to our founding fathers here in the United States having all these connections, back to France, back to secret societies. And I guess probably no matter where you're from, you might end up finding that. I mean, we find that, Cort, because we're from the United States, but Lara says she can see that too. So is it all roads lead to Rome, or is it all roads lead to France? I don't know.
Well, I think it might be even two opposed ends of the same research or the same philosophy or whatever. It is maybe not a case, or not by chance, that France is actually the only worldly nation in the world. It is completely not religious. There are many Catholics, but they don't define themselves a religious country, and they are just a worldly state. It's even like, for example, Germany is also a worldly state, but it's not the same thing.
Right.
No, so they are the only people, and their Freemasons are. I don't know if they are atheists, but they're different from all the others. The Freemasons in France. and they are very strong. I was surprised going to France often how strong Freemasons are in France and what they are able to achieve.
Right.
A little bit in everything. And one day, and also the Templars, what was very interesting that one day I had always seen coming from Nice going to Marseille, a sign that there was a Templars castle somewhere, and we went to search for this Templars castle, and it was like as if people did not want us to tell where it was. And when we finally found it, and it was actually not so hidden, but it was difficult to find if you didn't know where to go. We went there, and immediately a guy came with a motorbike, and he said, "Oh, what are you doing here?" And he was giving us some clues. He wanted to know who we are, and we understood that he was talking in codes, but we couldn't answer them because we didn't even know what he was talking about. It was very interesting because there is something behind all this still, and there are still Templars. And you see the flags, the Templars flags, in certain places in France. They're still there. They put them out. It's like as if there were communities, whole entire communities living under the sign still.
Wow.
So this is France.
Yes. Someone in the chat room is asking about did you mention that the Basque population has a large proportion of RH blood types?
RH negative. Yes.
I mean, RH negative blood types. And, you hear that, when you're hearing about, special bloodlines and things like that, you often hear that about that RH negative factor. Do you attach any significance to that, or do you have any ideas about that, Lara?
This is a very difficult question because there are two possible approaches. One is the question of our heritage, and especially in Europe, where we had the Neanderthals and the Cro-Magnon people.
Yes.
And to wonder, because the Cro-Magnons were supposed to be our real ancestors until not a long time ago, and then lots of findings pointed to the possibility that it was not like that. That the Neanderthals had a much more important role in our development. And there are people who say that the Basques are descendants from the Neanderthals, like others. So this is one approach, just to look up our heritage and possible migrations. And of course, there are many people who think that this is a sign of extraterrestrial origin and of special races on Earth, which is also a possibility. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think what is very strange is that there is this RH negative blood type, and it's still there, and that there is a population that has this RH negative blood type, which is not compatible in certain cases between mother and child. This is, I think, very strange.
Yes. Yes, I know. I remember, years ago in the United States, when babies were born with RH negative, a lot of times they were called blue babies, and they had to give them a complete blood transfusion at birth in order for them to live. They were like sickly. And, I'm going to have to look into that idea and see what that was all about. But I remember there was like a celebrity couple, I read about that had a blue baby, and I was like a little girl when I read about it. I was so fascinated by that. But that RH factor, negative factor, would be really interesting to look into a little bit more. Now, I wanted to get just a little bit into some of your other research into the red-haired people. I think I misquoted by saying red-haired giants, but it was red-haired peoples and their relationship to certain other cultures.
Well, this research, I researched a little bit about this, and because I was interested in finding out where it came from, and something that really caught my attention was then when they did this DNA analysis of Tutankhamun, and they found out that he was related to, actually also to the European especially northern European people, especially to the British people, and so I researched a little bit about this, and I found out that there were lots of red-haired people also in the past, and that the red-haired people have a very particular place also in mythology and history. And I tried to find out a little bit more about this. And so I found a connection from the red-haired mythology and the red-haired people that goes to the legend of Atlantis very often. Yeah.
And do you have an idea where Atlantis was?
No. Well,
hard question.
Well, you know what? I have there's something I thought for myself. I might have read this somewhere, but I think it is a very interesting hypothesis that Atlantis was something that existed during Ice Age, and therefore was a place that was built in part on ice, and that existed because Plato said it was outside the columns of Heracles, which would be Gibraltar, if I'm not wrong. And so maybe there was something. Also, the description of all these crystals and this brilliant something that sparkles in the sun and all this. Maybe they built something with ice. Maybe they had this huge territory they had occupied, and then it just melted down when the Ice Age finished. This is a possibility, but I don't know whether it existed at all. I honestly do believe Atlantis existed, but I don't know where. Another possibility is that it was something between Europe and the Americas, which went into the ocean, and the survivors came to both coasts, the American and the North African coast and the Northern European coast. So this is why we have similarities in several things culturally, sometimes with blood. But, it's all absolutely hypothesis.
Right. There's a lot of theories that say where Seville in Spain is, that area, some people think may have been Atlantis somehow. And that includes Ronda, by the way.
True.
The Ronda
I've
area.
also heard down in Mexico, I think down in the area, I can't remember the name of the area, but sort of the Mayan country down there. I think that was Edgar Casey that sort of placed Atlantis in that area. But, I guess nobody's figured it out yet.
Yeah, Mexico City resembled the descriptions, at least, with the city in the middle of the lake with circular, things around it and everything. So when Cortez found it, that's what they wrote about. But that's just a visual, physical similarity, and that might be where that ends.
But it's also interesting, these similarities of cultures. Like, you noticed, Lara, that there was something that looked distinctively Incan on the cross at Hendaye. And we find that, sort of this cross-cultural information seems to somehow have gotten around the world. Similar cultures have similar beliefs. They sort of a lot of them have this flood story. A lot of them have this, story that sounds like the Anunnaki story. And it's just odd that these ancient peoples would be saying the same things, showing the same images.
Of course, the symbols are similar, and it is also interesting that there are a lot of Native American legends that say that when their ancestors came to the Americas, they found an already existing population on the continent, which they described as mythical beings.
Mm.
And
Did they have red hair by any chance?
I don't know, but if you think about the Viracocha legend and all this, these were definitely European people.
And that he supposedly had red hair in a lot of the descriptions.
And Quetzalcoatl also.
Right.
Oh, right. Very, very interesting. Yeah,
which is very strange, because how how would the Incas and how would the native peoples of America describe a European if they had never seen one, or a red-haired person when they had never seen one? And also something else, that they were all these legends, the Quetzalcoatl, the Viracocha, and all these legend people are waiting for this person or this god or this godlike figure to come back from the ocean.
Oh.
And they all vanished in the ocean.
Like the Merovingians, sort of.
Yeah.
Similar.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. And now the Merovingians are supposedly red-haired. Isn't that correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's another interesting connection. Mm-hmm. Was it the Merovingians, or was it someone else who had red hair and had some kind of a birthmark on their shoulder? Did you hear anything about that?
No.
I might have the wrong group.
Yeah, I haven't heard that one, but
I'm going to look that up. I'll let you guys know.
Okay.
Because I distinctly remember that when I was researching for my film Bloodline, we ran across that sort of phenomenon.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it. It fits too well with what Lara was saying. The whole story of the Merovingians and the Quinatar and everything coming from the sea. And even interesting, the word mer means sea as well, correct, in French? Am I right? Mer in French, M-E-R?
It means sea, yeah. It means the sea.
Oh, la mer, oui.
Yeah,
yes.
The sea.
And there has also very often been made a link between the Basque Land and Atlantis. This is also very important.
Yeah, it makes sense. And all the legends of Queen Scota, who is the namesake of Scotland, associated with that region of northern Spain and Galicia as well, in the whole Celtic connection that you were speaking about before.
Yes, exactly. What I also find interesting is that there's the story of the Templars who might have been able to escape, a few of them, with the what is supposed treasure, and that they went to La Rochelle and they sailed away towards west. And what is interesting is that they are believed to have either been have arrived at the American coast or in Scotland.
Right. And that could influence the native people as well at a way earlier date than history tells us.
Exactly.
And there's also other bands of missing Scotsmen in history too. that like the Battle of Tebba, I covered that in my book, where Scots nobles, including Sinclairs and James Douglas, in a kind of fairy tale story, were killed, and it's easy to imagine that they survived and did something else anonymously that could have included something such as what you're talking about.
Exactly.
So there's all kinds of possibilities out there, and it is kind of silly to assume that people didn't travel across the Atlantic Ocean until Columbus. I mean, Columbus was the first one to actually claim it, I believe, in a way that everybody agreed on, that they all knew other people had been there. And they also established a permanent presence, too, and that's important, and probably from a legal standpoint.
By the way, guys, I just found that the Philip Gardiner talks about the Merovingians with their long red hair and their special birthmark between their shoulders of a red cross.
Interesting. I didn't know. I knew the red hair, but I didn't know about the red cross between the shoulders.
And also, the tribe of Benjamin was said to have had a red cross between their shoulders. I guess that's same as the Merovingians, I guess, or that were from the tribe of Benjamin.
And they're associated by some to Arcadia.
Oh, yeah.
But the actual red-haired was the tribe of Dan, I'm not wrong.
Oh, that's interesting. I'll have to look that up.
Right. There's lots of legends
so many
of them.
layers of this mystery. It's so hard to unravel. So many layers and over so much time. You know, all these family names, all these different generations, and all these things. It's really too much for one researcher to ferret out all this information. So it's wonderful to have people like you out there really helping us all out by turning up new information on these subjects that we're all so interested in. And I certainly want to thank you both for coming on the show tonight, especially you, Laura, for coming on this early Friday morning for you in Berlin.
Much better than I thought.
You sound completely wide awake and alert, so you did a wonderful job. And I want
you
to
for the invitation.
Absolutely. And Cort, it's always a pleasure, to have you back on, and hope you'll keep on trucking with your work, both of you guys, and keep us all posted.
Right. I have another book almost ready to go about Hendaye, and that will involve some of this, what we've been speaking about.
Yeah, Laura, I hope to see you writing something about this discovery and putting out this information for all the rest of us researchers out there that are looking into these matters. It'd be wonderful to have that.
Okay.
Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing it. Definitely.
Absolutely, yeah. In your pictures and everything would be wonderful.
It could also be a fourth part of my Atlantis and Red-Haired Race series.
Yes, and which also, I hope you don't mind, I posted the links to those articles, I think there's 4 parts, in the chat room so that everyone could see what we were talking about and can look at it later and read it for themselves. It's very interesting material. Thanks again, everybody, and thanks all you guys for listening. I hope you join us next week for another edition of Night Vision Radio. Good night, everybody.